What is a completely bad thing that is now so pervasive that it isn't wrong? Part 2. Story 13. Arguments being verbal battles meant to be won. No, they aren't. Arguments are discussions with the objective of reaching a truth or consensus. It's not about drunking on your interlocutor or asserting your beliefs over theirs. Also, if I stutter or can't speak my thoughts clearly, that doesn't mean you're right or you've won the argument. I just can't speak properly at the moment for whatever reasons. This is an underrated point. I absolutely hate that people bulldoze over other people when the other person just can't articulate, or non-native tongue, or in my case, work with mostly math people who aren't good with language/words. Calm down. Winning by default doesn't mean much. This is false. Just kidding. I'm sorry. I agree with you. Healthy debate and good-natured banter are becoming a lost art. Story 14. Having to accept cookies for every website. It's made purposefully difficult by companies, so you will just accept it. There should be an implicit deny on the browser level that just always blocks cookies outright. Well, I mean, you can disable cookies outright, but that will break virtually any stateful website. Block third-party cookies on your Chrome settings. The first-party ones 99% of the time are there for key features of a site, not ads. I think there should be a new law that on every website that wants to give you cookies, they should have 3, maybe 5 lines of info with what they'll do with your info, and not 5,000 pages that no one will read. Story 15. Maybe this is just a me thing, but as someone who's adopted, I'm really bothered by adoptive parents who lie to their kids. I think starting your relationship with your child based on a lie is completely wrong, and it will come back to bite you later. Unfortunately, some parents who cannot biologically have children will choose to supplement this by adopting a kid and telling that kid they gave birth to them. This needlessly stigmatizes adoption by making it a shameful secret while also making sure that if this child finds out later in life, they will resent their parents 100% and never trust them again. It's just awful. My parents were completely transparent with me from a really young age, and I grew up well. I love my parents and personally have no desire to ever meet my biological mother. Every adopted kid is different, but they all deserve to be told the truth. I would have to agree with this. In high school, I was good friends with someone who was adopted, and his parents told him early on his relationship with them was the same as my relationship with my parents. That didn't take anything away because they are his parents. They raised him, influenced his values, and loved him. Biology be they are his parents, adopted or not. Story 16. Photoshopping and social media. Sure, let me Photoshop myself into a completely different-looking person and receive all praise as if it actually validates me. I'm a designer and I Photoshop images for work sometimes. Once people learned that I'm pretty good at it, so many people asked me to Photoshop their photos for the most mundane reasons. You look great the way you are. Life is not ideal. It kills me so much on the inside when my friends ask me to Photoshop their photos to make them look less flawed, and now I absolutely refuse to do it. Story 17. Well, I'm not sure if it's actually wrong, but needing a few years of experience for an entry-level job. The job just sounds pretty wrong to me. Yeah, companies seem to not differentiate between entry, let's say at most an internship beforehand, and low-level positions, 1 to 5 years experience. Thanks to COVID, I graduated with no internship. Guess I'll be living in my parents' basement for eternity. Story 18. Honestly, that's just clueless HR workers trying to filter out the noise. No one actually expects entry-level positions to have years of experience. They just do this to reduce their workload by reducing applicants. 30 years ago, job applications were much more straightforward, but also a lot harder. To apply for a job in most places, you would have to scour the local paper/job center/recruitment agency for job ads, then either phone them to get more details or post a CV and cover letter for the organization. As such, most people only applied to roles they were serious about trying for, and most job adverts would only elicit a few responses. Nowadays, however, the fact that everything is online means that the barriers to apply for jobs are much lower. Anyone can have a stock CV and covering letter ready for any position and just send it en masse to the HR team. Accordingly, HR has spent this time coming up with more and more convoluted ways to make it harder to apply to reduce the candidates they have to look at. As such, they will add lines like minimum 2 years experience for entry-level job in order to reduce applicant numbers back down to a lower level, either by discouraging otherwise suitable candidates who ignore the role not meeting the criteria, or by ignoring those applicants when they get too many. This seems to confirm my suspicion that websites that ask you for a CV/cover letter but then proceed to ask for almost every piece of info on those documents typed out in separate text boxes are clunky by design. I get it, I do, but at the same time, it's still a bit garbage, isn't it? You get these ridiculous barriers to entry to weed out the number of applications, but at the same time, you're throwing out plenty of perfectly good applicants. Should HR have to do a ton more work to go through everyone? Well, I mean, that sucks, but the alternative sucks too. I guess just everything kind of sucks sometimes. Story 19. Years ago, I had no idea email senders could get notifications if the recipient had received and read the email. I would just check work emails and pretend I never read them until I got back into the office the next day. Then my manager baited me into lying about not reading them. Never checked work emails for real after that. How? What email service? My boss would text me and the two others in our field all the time after 5, sometimes as late as 9 p.m. I never replied, and when asked why, just explained that I'm off the clock at 5 and I'm not being paid anymore. Therefore, I will get to you at 8 a.m. the next morning when I clock in. I was labeled as the lazy millennial, but of it, I have a life. You can't fire me for not answering a text off the clock. For that, no business would give away a key resource for nothing, and one of your key resources is time. If you've already negotiated your time, i.e. hours of work, then made a deal. Good on you. I like to have a beer when I get home. I don't feel fit for work, and it would be unprofessional to do work in that state. My manager was the same thing. He would ask me to work weekends on a Friday afternoon. I told him a million times before that he can't pull that stuff because I already have plans made. And then he would say that I'm not a team player. And one time I told him that it's not my fault that you couldn't plan accordingly. But if he asks me of Wednesday to work on a weekend, I can make that happen. But he always forgets. Funny thing is that he forgets to be a team player over the raises are being discussed. You can't fire me for not answering a text off the clock. Wow, that hit me hardcore just now. Something I need to be reminded of. Thank you. Seriously, folks, make sure you have work-life boundaries. If you start letting a workplace take advantage of you off the clock, they will keep pushing. Give them an inch, they will take a mile. They want you to work, they pay you. If you take a job that is salary, make sure you have working hours. You want to work to live, not live to work. Story 20. Multi-level marketing. Company groups that target women who peaked in high school or college and lure them into thinking it makes them boss babes by harassing their personal connection and contacts about leggings, candles, skincare, nails, supplements. Oddly specific, yet astoundingly accurate. If I get one more, "Hey girl," scripted message on Facebook Messenger from some girl who voted me out of a study group or made me do all the work on a class project or took all my pogs away in 5th grade, I'll go crazy. Story 21. The sexualization of our youth on social media and algorithms that reward them and promote it. For young girls, it's even just finding clothing that doesn't make them look older than they are. Having an 11-year-old girl who's tall for her age, but it's very hard to find kid clothes. It's like the clothing industry has conspired that it's time for her to dress naughty. Shorts and shirts are made very short, and in the kids section recently, the new thing is athletic pants but with a matching crop top in sizes as small as extra small, meant for like 6-year-olds. You can find some things, but it's absurd how hard you need to look to make them feel like a kid. When I was in middle school, I felt like every piece of clothing in stores was either geared towards people who were much older or much younger. Like you're either wearing jeans with sparkly pink pockets or shorts that show your. As a result of this, my 12-year-old chooses to shop in the boys section because she doesn't like showing that much skin. She told me she wishes that it was easier to be comfortable and pretty. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 22. Taking pictures of strangers who aren't doing anything wrong or untoward just to post up on social media with some snark or judgment. In middle school, I was very overweight. My body is very weirdly built, and I carry fat around my lower back, and I have a small. I'm a guy, mind you. And so I had trouble pulling my pants up all the way. So one time I sat down at the cafeteria with my friends, and this prick behind me takes a picture of my crack and shows the whole table, who proceeds to laugh and point at me. I can still feel the embarrassment to this day. Honestly, this kind of stuff is just all kinds of out of hand. I don't care if someone is in Walmart in their pajamas, leave them alone. I don't care if you think someone looks weird, leave them alone. They're people. And when you do that, you're treating them like sideshows. People have a right to exist in public, and so long as they aren't causing problems or making a scene, just leave them be. They weren't put on this earth for your amusement. Story 23. Spam emails. We ignore it. It's just there. But it shouldn't be. I'm surprised robocalls aren't higher on this list. I'd tack onto this one, paper mail that you never asked for. It's a waste of resources. Been getting magazines, catalogs, advertisements, and other solicitations in the mail, and I've never once responded in any fortuitous way to any of them. Who actually indulges in that to inspire that potential return on investment? Really, it should be illegal to mail people trash. Story 24. Plastic everything packaged in more plastic. I work in retail, and the amount of plastic and rubbish we get from the stock is horrendous. It's so depressing to see all the time. Yep, the plastic you see on the shelves is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of waste it produces. I remember when everything was boxed or paper bags, when we stopped that to save the trees, so instead we're killing our oceans. GG, although back then recycled paper wasn't much of a thing. For those of you who want to say, what about recycling? I've got bad news for you. Recycling isn't helping as much as you think. It's better than not recycling, but the amount of plastic waste we produce is, well, let me just say that I'm really concerned for future generations. It's bad. Story 25. Perfect attendance being celebrated for kids. When my kid is sick, he stays home. He's healthy, too. I can't imagine having a kid with a disorder that makes them prone to being sick more often and then not getting some little award for not being in school every day. Kids get sick. It's not wise to send them to school anyway so they can spread the germs. Schools push attendance because butts in seats is one of the factors that the government uses when deciding how much funding schools get. Story 26. Social media addiction. I can quit anytime I want. Closes this site, stares blankly at home screen before mindlessly opening this site again. I quit Facebook by deleting the app and bookmark. At least that makes it a bit of a chore to log in and check it. Story 27. Single-use plastic. It is the stupidest thing humans can do. You need spaghetti, so you buy wrapped in plastic? A material that, if not burned, will disintegrate into even smaller particles that will creep their way back into the bodies of all living things on Earth. Is that really worth it for a bit of convenience? Story 28. Being proud and bragging about a lack of sleep as if it's some sort of virtue, or working yourself till you're burned out. Like, if you're not giving it 100% all the time, you're lazy. And when you finally crash and burn due to lack of sleep and exhaustion from working constantly, you're not hard enough. Let me tell you, folks, as someone who worked midnights and operated on a lack of sleep for years and now gets a regular 7 to 8 hours a night, the difference is wild. I might have a couple less hours a day to do stuff, but with the hours I do have, I actually want to do stuff and do a lot more with them. My quality of life with good regular sleep is phenomenal, so get some sleep. Story 29. Tying your health insurance to your work, USA. If you become too sick to work, example, terminal cancer, you lose your job and your healthcare coverage. Dental not being included in healthcare. How is the health of your mouth and teeth separate from the health of the rest of your body and necessitate totally different and pricey insurance? Story 30. How much material classified as recyclable is, in truth, not recyclable. It's more a marketing win that kept people using plastics. Why else would China stop taking the world's trash? They could do nothing with it but bury it in the ground. Story 31. Believing lies because it supports your worldview. And what's equally wrong is that people who believe lies are a profitable market for media programs and personalities trying to continue and spread said lies. Story 32. Crimes, as long as you have the money. And I don't mean that you can pay lawyers or something. Sometimes it just looks like you're just allowed to be a criminal if you have money. If the penalty for a crime is a fine, then that law only exists for the lower class. Seriously, think of the businesses that break the law because breaking the law just incurs a fine, but that fine is significantly less than the money they end up making or saving because of breaking that law. They're just going to break the law, and they do. And individuals with money too, and they can influence the creation of new laws. This thread is depressing. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.